good morning, or depending on where you are and what time it is, good afternoon or good evening. In today's video, we will be tackling an issue that has plagued me for the last couple of weeks. What is the perfect fitment for a 3000 GT? Now, according to the Fitment Industries gallery, you can throw anything from a 25mm offset to a 46mm offset on this car and have it look decent. I've got a 18mm offset we'll throw on it. I've got a stock, I think it's 46mm offset. Somebody will correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, but I'll show you what I have tried, what I ended up settling on, and how I got this look at the end. I should add really quick, if you're not familiar with this car, it is a VR4, but anything that works on the VR4 will work on the lower models. I think the SL or ES if you got a Stealth. Really, I think the only difference is the size of the brake calipers. So whatever's good here should be good on those as well. We're gonna start things in the rear. First things first, you're gonna need some coilovers to achieve the perfect fitment. Pick your brand. These are Tane, whatever you call them. How low did I go? My theory on height is go as low as the car will allow you and still be functional. The only thing I had to do was roll the rear fender. Leo Fender Rolls, the man in town who does it all. I'll put his Instagram up here quick. He did the rear roll on these. The fronts are fine currently. I'll show you the fitment up there in a minute. But clearance wise, nothing on the 3000 GT hangs low. That's another thing I liked on my Eclipse. That car was pretty slammed and it didn't really matter because everything's tucked up pretty good on both the 3000 GT and the Eclipse. My 350Z is a different story. So just be mindful of that when you're going for your perfect fitment, but probably start with coilovers. I don't think lowering springs is going to get you where you want to go nowadays. All right, let's talk wheels quick. My car came with these 19-inch raised TE37s. They have a 44, I think. There, yeah. 44 millimeter offset on them, and I'm telling you right now, I've got a 20mm spacer on here. Without this, the stock wheel, and of course the one that came on the car, is pretty sunk into the fender. So let me bolt one up quick and we'll start looking at fitment. And really quick before I bolt one up, you'll notice the stock studs. I did not do any trimming on those. Both the stock wheel and the raise have these nice, cutouts in them in case you, I don't know if it is in case you do a spacer, but maybe. But anyways, it fits in slick, so no trimming required with a 20mm. Also, when ordering your spacers, if you do order them, of course, hub-centric is the way to go. All right, here's a stock wheel bolted up to the spacer. I would call this fitment, man, maybe a little pokey, but I could live with this. So, if I ever decide to cut the raise loose or get the stock look, it's pretty much just a bolt up affair. A little distance shot too if you need it. I'm not gonna lower it and raise it every time I put a different wheel on. It's just too much work, but it should give you a pretty good idea. All right, here is the 18mm offset with that same 20mm spacer in there, of course, in case you and your cousin Jethro want to go off-roading with your 3000 GT or Stealth. And finally, here is the TE37, what I would consider the perfect fitment for this car. Perfect is always going to be, perspective. What one person sees as perfect, another one may not. I have to have this be a tiny bit pokey. Honestly, you'd be hard pressed to argue that this isn't perfect, but it might be a tiny bit pokey. I have to because of the front, and I'll explain that when I get up there. Some of you are probably looking at the wheel right now and saying, man, he's running some negative camber there. Yes, there is negative camber. I did buy the 3SX camber arms. I'm debating whether or not to put them on. You can run a little bit of negative camber. It's actually gonna help you in the corners. So this isn't a drag car. You'd want a little bit of positive camber for the squat if it was a drag car, but I have no intentions of doing that. A zero offset would be nice, but with my fitment and the fenders rolled, I don't know if I could run a zero offset without scrubbing. So this car is gonna get in alignment. I'll try and sneak it into this video. It's scheduled for tomorrow right now, but I'm gonna see what the rear camber's at, and if it's within spec, a degree and a half to the negative, I'm gonna run it. The more OEM you can keep your car, the better. I have heard that those 3SX camber arms can squeak a little bit. So, the stock ones, there isn't really any adjustability. but you're not gonna have to deal with any squeaks or rattles, which I absolutely hate on cars. Some of you may have noticed a little scrubbing on the rear here. That is from rocking the lowered car without the fenders rolled. I can confirm after rolling, I've been driving this around for a week with them rolled. Hard acceleration, cornering, and also large bumps do not rub. All right, let's talk about the front now. The main issue I had up front is these big old brake calipers. As you can see, I scuffed them up a little bit. When I got this car, it was running, where are they? When I got this car, it was running this spacer up front. But with the stock TEs up front, I thought it looked a little too pokey. So I pulled it out, put the TE back on, and you know, turned it, and of course, come to find out, that's why the spacer was there, so that it could clear the caliper. So if you're gonna run a 44mm TE on the front of your 3000 GT, you know, you can't. So I'll throw a stock wheel on here. Again, I don't know the exact offset of this, but let me throw that on there for you quick. Okay, so here is the stock wheel. You can see there is clearance with the caliper there. It is loosely bolted up, no spacer in there, but you have clearance obviously. But the OEM wheel actually looks pretty good in there, so if you know the exact offset of the OEM wheel, you could probably be pretty confident running that up front. Now, you probably noticed this spacer right here. The reason I have this spacer right here is because the ones that came with the car are not hub centric. You can see how there's movement in it. Ask yourself, would you want that kind of movement behind your wheel in a hard corner or on a canyon run? Probably not. That's why I went and got a hub centric. Again, it's just a 5mm. I tried a 3mm. It was too, so I needed at least 5 to clear the caliper with the 44mm offset TE. You hear that? That's why we go hub centric. I don't think you really need to see it, but just for fun, here's that 18mm offset 350Z wheel of mine. Obviously super pokey. I do have the 5mm spacer in there right now. Okay, here is the front, back on the ground. Obviously from the front, pretty flush, maybe a tiny bit pokey. Ideally, you could get that, you know, 5mm spacer out there. Maybe even take an extra millimeter or two. I don't know, that's all personal opinion really. I'm totally satisfied with the look of this car. I'm just making this video for those guys out there who have this car, looking into this car, maybe want to order their wheels ahead of time or are in the process of ordering wheels. This should give you a pretty good idea of what offset you're looking at. Some of you might notice I have a little bit more of a gap up front than in back. It's basically just a safety measure. I didn't want to roll the front fenders. On these Mitsubishis, the fender liners are screwed in to the kind of the outside lip here. So when you roll those fenders, you either have to cut that or, you know, modify your fender liner. And I hate when cars are missing fender liners, so I just kept mine, you know, up a tiny bit more. No one's really gonna know that it's an extra, you know, quarter inch, half inch higher than the rear. And nothing rubs. I've turned the wheels left, right, hit bumps. It's good to go.
The next day.
Time to get in alignment. Lots to think about here, boys. So I consider myself a pretty logical person, but even the best of us, when we have time and money wrapped up into something and an issue comes up with that something, sometimes it's hard to think logically. Your emotions get involved. And that's where I'm at right now. Basically, the rear is showing -2 degrees, which isn't the worst thing in the world. I mean, obviously there's guys running way more than 2.
I wake up flex.
But if I want to get it to 0, I'd have to put the camber arms in. And if I zero it out, I probably don't have enough clearance on that rear fender. So I'd probably have to raise it a little bit. So I'm doing what any wise man would do who's not thinking logically. I'm seeking counsel of those I trust. What do you think?
I think she looks good.
Can you tell how negative it is back there? It's not even that bad.
I wouldn't have noticed it if you didn't say anything. But I'd say keep it just to keep the ride height.
So what did we learn here today? Number one thing I learned, I think the stock wheel or the OEM wheel and tire has the perfect offset for the front. It fits flusher than my 44mm, you know, TE37 with the 5mm spacer behind it. So if you know for sure what these are, that's the offset I would go for in the front. For the rear, this is my 44mm TE with a 20mm spacer in there. That puts it at about a 24mm offset. To me, it's about right. You can play with it as you see fit. Another thing that maybe you guys can take away from this video is that you can get away with the stock suspension components in the rear as long as you're okay with some negative camber if you're going to slam your car. If you're not okay with negative camber, hit me up. I would be more than happy to sell you this brand new set of 3SX camber arms with all of the hardware, you know, factory bolts and everything. They want a 20% like restocking fee to return it. And they also expect me to go to, you know, UPS or FedEx store, which I just do not want to do. Now again, if you don't want to deal with negative camber, I know you saw on the alignment sheet that my car was, you know, in spec as far as camber goes in the front, but keep in mind, I do have camber adjustment on my coilovers. This wasn't touched at the alignment shop, you know, somehow magically when I dropped this, it stayed in spec. But, you know, if you're slamming your car and you don't have camber adjustments on the coilovers, you might run into an out of spec, you know, camber setting up front. So just keep that in mind if you're gonna do this. Okay, you know which offset to run up front. You have an idea of what offset to run in the rear. You know how to deal with the camber if you slam it. I think that's pretty much it. So I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. Definitely stay tuned to the channel. I know it's been a while since I posted anything on the 3000 GT, but I've pretty much got it sorted now, so I should be able to start cranking out some content, hopefully a little quicker. I'm not gonna lie, for those of you who've been with the channel for a while, you know I'm a realtor. The real estate market has been crazy the last, you know, couple months, so the money's good over there. And not saying I don't like doing this YouTube stuff, but I don't make a whole lot of money over here, so I gotta focus. I gotta strike while the iron's hot over there. In any event, I appreciate you guys all so much for watching today's video. Definitely stay tuned for more, and just in case I don't see ya,
good afternoon, good evening, and good night.
apparently my car needs to go for a drive. Just stay back a ways. You could just be testing to make sure it's not too bad, but if he rips it, I'm gonna be pissed. Yum.
For his baby.
What the heck? And just... Boy, I'm sucking dick.